Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of OneMicNite, the podcast that brings you stories of artists and people on their journey, helping to guide, answer questions, and motivate you in the business. You already know who I am. I'm Marcos Luis, and I want to thank you guys all for coming back to another episode and all the support and love you give to the podcast and meeting new people and learning and sharing the inspirational stories. I also want you to make sure you click the bell if you're watching this on YouTube, as well as the digital podcast, because I'm dropping episodes now more frequently. Not quite as busy as I used to be. You never know when an episode is going to pop out. So please make sure you click the bell and subscribe if you haven't. Welcome all the new listeners on the platform, streaming platforms, and welcome all the people who are watching on YouTube. This podcast is under OneMicNite. OneMicNite is spelled OneMicNite. And as you've already known from the last episode, OneMicNite Talk podcast that I shared with Liz Menezes and Ashley Elizabeth Green, Stephen Anthony Beasley, are now going to be joined with this podcast. So both podcasts will be under OneMicNite podcast. So go there on the digital platform to see it, and you can still watch the episodes on YouTube. So with all that having been said, I want to thank you guys for joining me. I have an incredible guest today. First, I want to give a shout out to the person who introduced me to her. Her name is Eva Cornett, and she will be on the podcast later. She's a life coach and motivator. But my guest today is equally dynamic, and I'm so excited to talk to her. She is an author. She's a mommy. She's a comedian. She's a producer. She's a dancer. She's a bead designer, and she is incredible. Please welcome Tunu Thom to
OneMicNite. Thank you so much. Thank you so much,
God.
Marcos. That was a beautiful introduction. I was talking to a person that I just met yesterday through a really good friend, and she was like, "Oh, you're a multi-hyphenate." And I'm like, "Yo, we need a shorter word to say that, because that's an ugly word."
That's an ugly word. Listen, I have questions for you. The first question is, Who is Tunu Thom?
Who is Tunu? Tunu is an angel warrior. Tunu is a woman who is free. Tunu is an artist. Tunu is a visionary. Tunu is a being who insists on creating. I'm a being who insists on creating because I believe that creation is the closest that we can get to God, or what we can humanly perceive as God, right?
Right.
Because we have these minute perspectives of what God is, and we can only even fathom God through our human experience.
I'm sorry, I want to cut you off for 1 second. What is God for you? What is God?
Wow.
For you? And I say that because I know what it is for me.
Yes.
What is it for you?
God is the source of all creation, inspiration. God is like everything.
Yeah.
God is everything. God is not like everything. God is everything. God is my creator. God is the source of light and darkness. God is the most hilarious teacher. God is enjoying the way that we come back to that entity of pure love, that entity of choice, of lessons, of art, that entity of genius, that entity of creation and constant, consistent creation. You know, I was thinking about the systems that God has created on this planet, and I was telling my homegirl, we were at this restaurant and the water just happened to taste mad good. I was like, yo, you realize there's no new water? Like, there's no new water. Like, the water is, There's no new water. Like the water is the water.
What do you mean? Like on Earth, there's no new
There's
water?
no new water on Earth. The water we got is the water we always gonna have, you
Mm,
know?
mm,
And of course, there's climate change. And of
right.
course, we have these things about the planet heating up. But the reality is that there is a perfect divine system of water, water, water,
Yes, yes, yes,
water, water, and water is one of the vehicles of the spirit, right?
yes. I was just going to
Water,
say, which is equivalent to our life cycle,
hello.
and as we go, we pass away, we come back in another form. It's a
Exactly.
cycle. It's cyclical.
Exactly. And so we were given all these phenomenal ways in nature to find out what is God. And so that's a question that I humbly cannot answer because would not conceive to say, oh yeah, I know. I do not know.
Right.
I'm figuring and experiencing and honoring and living that every single day. And my prayer is like, I love people. People are amazing. But if I made God proud and happy, I did a good job.
That's right. That's
You
right.
know,
God
I
is
did
the
a good job.
answer and God is the question.
Yo, you hear it,
God,
right?
God is the known and the unknown.
That's right.
It's
That's
everything.
right.
It's
That's
all the
right.
forces of nature wrapped up in one. It's he, she, them, they, you, me. It's all those things, and that's
Yes.
to me, that's what equals God.
Yes.
That
Yes.
energy, that force,
And so much more,
and
right? Like
more.
we can say unknown, but what could we imagine as being unknown? It's all that
It's all
too.
that too. Yeah,
It's like,
exactly,
what?
exactly. Let's go back. I want to know who you are. We want to know who you are. Where are you? Your humble beginnings. Where are you from?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, I would say that my beginnings are not humble. My parents very on purpose created me. They very much wanted me, and I'm grateful to be of that crew of humans, right? Like that's a
Right.
very special crew
It
of
sure is.
humans
It really is
who were wanted,
a
who their
purposeful
parents
creation.
purposely, yeah, they
Wow.
purposely were like, I love you, you love me too. Let's make someone else that we can, honor and love. And so my parents came together during a very important time in history. And there were a lot of things, as there are now, happening politically, happening with human relationships. And they decided that they were going to be purposeful about how we experienced ourselves. I have three other siblings, and they wanted us to have a moniker of self-efficacy. They wanted us to deeply love ourselves. They wanted us
Mm.
to be aware of who we are culturally. They wanted us to know about the planet that we lived on. They thought that it was important that we understood science and also the psychology of the human mind. And so these were all things that were wrapped up into my development as a youth. They were very, very big on us understanding culture, our cultural values. They were very big on spirituality. They believed that there is one God and that's expressed through different cultures in many different forms. So my parents took us to different ceremonies. We were going to Rastafarian Nyabingis. We went to church. We went to different kinds of churches. We went to the mosque. We went to Buddhist retreats. We did a lot of different religious activities so that we could see what was there and the different ways that people worship the Most High. And
So
so I believe,
I, I'm sorry. In retrospect, what kind of effect did that have on you?
oh my God,
How did
so
that?
dope,
Mhm.
so dope because right. So a few things. At the time, it was like I was the weird girl that wasn't necessarily connected to urban culture because we grew up in Brooklyn.
Mhm.
I wasn't necessarily connected to urban culture. I understood it, I experienced it, but it was an aspect. It wasn't the thing that I was implanted in and didn't see. It gave me a bird's eye view. It gave me a bird's eye view of the culture that I existed within, and
Oh my
it
gosh.
also it gave me roots and wings.
Mm, mm.
So
Yeah, yeah.
listen, I will throw on a pair of, Air Force Ones and some baggy jeans in a second, but I can also rock my gele and it's all me,
It's
You
like
might
you
see
were,
me with a feather in my hair representing my native Seminole ancestors. So, we as humanity are one. And I started my company called Art Mommy Inc. because I wanted to bring back the honor of the creative power of the first mother, right? And doing that through my artistic work, my artistic activities. So yeah, I feel like there's so much oneness that we may all be missing out on. There's so much connection that we all can participate and can participate in through the arts, right?
right.
And it's an honor to be an artist. I actually had a moment one day recently, like maybe about 2 weeks ago, and I was just like, oh my God, I'm allowed to do this work?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, that's how much you think of me? Oh man.
This is a profession you chose. This is a profession we chose. And whether we're successful, we are successful by what we put out and what we approve for ourselves. But whether we're getting financial gain from it or not, it doesn't matter, because we have a message with whatever medium we're working in to put out there. So if we feel good about it, that is what our success is.
But this is the thing that I realized early in my work. I realized that, well, a few things. I believe in making a lot of money. Like, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with making a lot of money. I'm fine with making money that is worth the work that I've done. Right.
Sure.
So I think that's amazing to do that. And it's just wonderful. I think everybody has their ebbs and flows when it comes to that, or maybe it's not, maybe it's like a permanent thing. Right. So I've been very blessed and gifted in that aspect. But something that I was thinking about was like, why would I have a perception of success being on an equal value with a system that stole people to make money? Like,
oh wow, there's a
you
thought.
you stole people and
Right.
you built an empire, and I'm comparing my idea of success to that value?
Right, right.
Never.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. I never thought about it
Laughable.
that way. Yeah, yeah, it
It's
is. It
laughable.
is. It is laughable.
And I think that it's important for artists to really recognize that the life that we live is our first piece of work. And the way that we care for our vessel, our vehicle and our vessel, the vessel of the spirit and the vehicle of our art, the way that we care for and honor it is the way that we're performing for our Most High God. Right. And I'm not saying my life is a show, and I'm not saying my life is a play, because I don't play with my life, but I am having fun. But what I will say is, like, my duty is to create before God, and everything else unfolds. Like, I'm like, oh, thanks, thanks.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I think that, a lot
way.
of times people get into, a situation where they want to be passionate about their art and what they do, but they also need to have some kind of financial gain. You got to eat, got to live, yeah, we can, make everything minimal, but we still got to, be able to enjoy and be able to continue to create things in our medium and buy the utensils we need to create, so success it's all relative. It's what you feel, is success for you.
Absolutely.
I have no problem. It is no secret that I have a 9-to-5 job, but I still make the time to follow my passion. I'm on stage. I do the podcast. I do these things because that's where my passion is, and that's where I feel successful. Whether I have financial gain or not, it'll come. Maybe it'll come. Maybe it won't. But I know that I have a message. I have a voice that I'm putting out into the world. That I'm sharing other people's stories that inspire. That is that's my purpose.
Yes. And this is the thing that I think is really interesting, right? What I think is really interesting is when artists come together and actually have conversation about, like, how do you make money? right? Like
Exactly.
that's interesting, that's important, that's empowering.
It is.
For me, I'm grateful because I've been making money selling my book, you know. That's been an honor, and I'm so grateful for all of the schools, all of my friends who have, you know, positions as teachers and guidance counselors who've invited me into their schools, all of the people who have purchased my book online. I am so very grateful to just the ability and the worldwide reach that the book has had, you know.
Let's talk
I'll
about
say,
the book for a moment. I'm sorry, a little
sure,
sidetrack.
sure.
The name of the book is
It's an
An
unexpected new
Unexpected New Dream.
dream.
Yeah.
Yes,
Tell
yes,
us about
yes.
the book.
The book is oh, wow. Okay, so the book is a portraiture of Nina Simone's childhood. I started studying Nina a while back because she just, hearing her just grabs every single thing inside of my soul, you know. And she's one of the few artists. I would say there are about 7 or 8 artists that I utilized as, I call them my ancestors, my artistic ancestors, right? And so they're people that I say that their life has created a path, and I'm continuing on in their legacy, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So but I'll focus on Nina Simone. She stopped me in my tracks. And when I first heard her, I'm ashamed to say I thought she was a man. And I'm ashamed to say I didn't know she was even playing the piano. And I'm
Really?
ashamed to say that I'd heard her voice in so many things, but never identified her as one being, you know? And it was
Right.
like I would hear that voice on a commercial or in the end of a movie, and I'd be like, oh, you know. But then I realized like who she was, and so I started studying her feverishly, and I learned so much. And
Give the people a couple of key points about Nina Simone, because I know a lot of the younger generations
yo,
have no idea,
Nina
how
is dope.
incredible. Yeah.
Yo, so she's literally an activist, an artist. She's a mother, a world traveler. She's a musician, a vocalist, a dancer. She's just all these wonderful things. But the thing that I highlight in the book is that she was studying when she was young to be the first Black female concert pianist. And she studied for hours and hours and like just years. And she put her heart and soul into it. And it's so interesting because Jay-Z says you was who you was when you got here, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
And Nina, at 8 years old, she made a protest. She was at her recital. She had a teacher named Miss Mazzy that trained her in classical music. And she was at her recital, and her parents had planned to sit in the front row. And her town was a town that was like it was like a how do you, like a resort town. That's a town that she lived in. And so, you know, it was Black people and white people, but it was still segregated. Very small, close-knit town. Her parents were moved to the back row. And she, at her young age, she was like, I'm not playing the piano until my parents are put back where they belong.
I know that's right. I know that's right.
Now, the
At a
amount of
young
courage,
age, right?
the amount of courage that it had taken for her to do that, you know, and then we look back and we say, this is a woman that wrote Mississippi Goddamn. And this is a woman that wrote Young, Gifted, and Black.
Yes.
And this is a woman that performed worldwide and was lauded worldwide. The seed of who you are is within you. It's our job to nurture and cultivate and sprout those seeds, you know? And interestingly enough, it wasn't on purpose. It wasn't on purpose that she's like, yeah, I'm going to fight for my people. It happened through relationships, right? So she's friends with Lorraine Hansberry. And she's friends with, you know, James Baldwin. And she lives down the block from Medgar Wiley Evers, you know, and Malcolm X is her neighbor. Like her kid and Malcolm X's daughters grew up together. Like there was a time where she went AWOL and her kids stayed with Betty. Her daughter stayed with Betty.
That's incredible.
You know, and so we look at ourselves and we think about legacy, and we look at ourselves and we think about justice and where do we fit, and my voice is too small. And it's literally about relationships like yours and mine.
Absolutely.
You know, it's
Absolutely.
very simple. It's very simple. And we think
Absolutely.
it has to be about a megaphone on a giant platform.
Yep.
And all it has to be is about self-respect and truth,
Exactly.
you know, and creation.
And one small thing that one person did just
Exactly.
yeah
Exactly.
continues to snowball, and you know, there you have it.
Because it's the truth.
It's the truth.
Like,
yeah,
the truth don't go away.
Right. It does not.
It can't even try. If you want it to go away, it cannot go away. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna be heard.
You try to cover it up, but it's still there.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Still there. Yeah.
So I'm just grateful to be able to tell this story. This book is it was such an honor, because honestly, I've never met my illustrator. We communicated the entire COVID online, on the telephone, and we pretty much, I gave him ideas of what I wanted the book to look like, and he just an amazing young man. His name is Chris White, and I wrote this book actually, I want to say like 10 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, it was something.
You have the book there?
Yeah, here it is.
Show us the cover when you
Sure.
can.
It's called An Unexpected New Dream.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I wrote it about 10 years ago. I'll read you guys a snippet from it.
Please do.
Yes, of course. But and it was just something that I was gonna do, and it just, you know, like, okay, I guess when the time was right, and COVID was like, right now. COVID was like, yes, right now.
That's it. That COVID, we talk about this, I think, in almost every episode. COVID was the worst of times and the best of times. If you were an artist, if you had ideas, if you had a business to you had been thinking about, you had the time to do it. And shame on you if you didn't do it.
You know, and it's interesting because I won't say shame on you, but this is what I will say. What I will say is I finally learned how to mind my business.
What do you mean?
I didn't understand the essence of minding my business. Like, COVID was like
minding your business.
Sit down.
Not like minding your business, but minding your business. Yes.
Mind your business.
Absolutely right.
You know? And
that's
it's like,
what I was trying to say. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, it's such a blessing, because I learned who am I?
Absolutely.
Who I'm not, what I don't move with.
Yes.
Like my boundaries. I learned so much about what's important to me. You know, my values got deepened. I'm just like, ooh, and then now it's like I wrote a prayer for myself during that time. But one of the lines in my prayer is, every choice is a launch pad of ample plenitude. All right. So it's like each and every choice that I make has a capacity to create something bigger, more abundant, more beautiful, more of a full spectrum life for myself, you know? And
everybody listen to this podcast. Make sure you got your notepads out, because she's dropping gems left and right.
Yeah.
Take notes.
It's so important. Right.
It is.
Because if we all commit as artists, as human beings, I believe human beings are artists, right?
Right. And
at our rawest form, that's what we are. And we get told to do something else, and we listen or we don't, right? Or we listen a little and we don't a little. Whatever choice we make, that's it. But I think about like, oh, I'm co-creating this with my God. Okay, so I have a huge responsibility. Mm-hmm. All right, so that means I have to watch my thoughts, my actions, my deeds. I have to be aware of my intentions, and I have to drink a lot of water. Right?
That's
so
right.
Just thinking about those things are like super important. But I wanted to just show a few of the pictures.
Yeah, please show some pictures.
Yeah. And the poem, the book came out in poetry form. Like, I just wrote it one day. It was like, oh my God. Like, I knew all this stuff about Nina, and it was just like, oh my God, let me get a paper and a pencil. So I would say it was like not even, I wrote it, yes, but it felt like it came through me. Not like, oh, I'm doing this thing right now, you know? So I'll just read this starting from this page. Little Eunice Wayman came into this world with a gift. At just 3, she climbed the piano bench without a lift. With precision, she played the mellow sound of her mama's favorite gospel song. The melody touched mama's heart as she smiled and hummed along. That actually happened.
Wow.
She found out, her
Wow.
mom found out she could play the piano at 3 years old. And she played her mom's favorite song. And so you can imagine, you're like, I'm here cleaning people's houses and I'm a gospel preacher on the weekends, you know, because her mom would go to different churches and preach. And she's like, but I have this virtuoso child. You know, what am I going to do with this? You know, and her mom had the foresight to continue her training. So her mama cleans houses by day. Her calling was a traveling minister. Her sisters played tambourine and sang along. They were great contributors. The whole family had talent. They worked together, and before long, she energized people with every note, helping them feel good through song.
Beautiful.
But at them at church.
Beautiful. The illustrations are killer. The words are killer. Yeah.
And so talent needs work to blossom. They all would agree. Now, I just want to stop there for a moment. Talent needs work to blossom.
Talent needs work to blossom. Yeah.
Talent needs work to blossom. Talent needs work to blossom. Now we could call it work, we could call it play, we could call it, there's so many things we can call it, you know? And anyone who's watching this, I want you to buy my book. I absolutely do. But if you're an artist, really want you to remember to blossom your work. Right? Talent needs work to blossom.
Yes, yes.
You know you have talent. You could feel it. You know when you make something that's like jaw-dropping. You know when you have an idea that's like, oh, nobody's ever done that.
Right.
You know when you're like, oh, sweat, hold up. And so really, if we want to be real about it, Marcus, all we have to do really is be like, okay, so I need this money. How do I get it to make this thing? And to make this thing, I have to cultivate myself. Right? I have to cultivate myself.
You have to cultivate yourself. You're right. Yeah.
The channel, the vessel. And I have to drink my water.
Recycled from the earth.
Right. Make good choices. Mind my business.
Yep. Mind my business. Yep.
And stay connected to my talent. It's my gift.
That's right.
You think about God gave you a gift.
Right.
We hear that. We hear that word. Oh, God gave him a gift. Oh, Beyonce's got a gift from God. What is a gift from God?
Yeah. What is that?
Like, what is that?
What is it? Yeah.
You know?
And if you don't think that these people haven't worked to make it more perfect or make it better, or, you know, of course they did.
But also we have the capacity to do that work play. We have to do that.
We have to.
That's the only real shift that will happen. If you think about it, artists are the only people that can transcend race. We transcend class. We transcend culture. We transcend every single barrier just in our daily lives.
Yes.
Every single one.
Right.
Artists, that's what we are. And so if we're not honoring the actual gift that God gave us, which is our talent, with work, attention, focus, cultivation, and giving it that ample plenitude, we can't expect to live a full spectrum life. And so we see, oh, that person has that, and they do this, and they flew there. But our flights are literally our cultivation of our talent.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So it's perfectly just an honor. But I'll continue. So talent needs work to blossom. They all would agree. Miss Mazzy gave Eunice formal training for a reasonable fee. Eunice knew church songs and she kept them close to her heart. Miss Mazzy introduced her to Bach, Beethoven, and Mozart. And so Miss Mazzy's home was like across the track, and she would have to get there, and she would realize like, oh, this is how my town is segregated, right? And she would see that her side of the same town was different quality of houses and homes, and Miss Mazzy's side had another quality of homes, right?
Listen,
And
go ahead. Isn't it interesting how other cultures add value to our lives and to our
yes,
human self,
yes, yes.
right?
And at her old grown behind age, writing her autobiography, she's thanking Miss Mazzy
Absolutely.
and the love that Miss Mazzy showed her and the gentleness and kindness that she taught her with. And she would perform her recitals, and that would pay Miss Mazzy because her mom,
Mm,
after a certain point and dad, they couldn't afford
they
to
couldn't
keep
afford it.
her in these classical classes, right? And so it's just very interesting how we look with one lens and then we exist with a whole nother one, you know?
Right.
And it's interesting how we put in our minds what we think is the truth, but our heart knows a whole different truth. You know, the
It does.
electromagnetic power of your heart is literally 6 feet.
Right.
Like the exact
And
distance they told us to stay away from each other during COVID that's literally how far your heart power goes on this physical plane.
right. Yeah.
You know?
And what if we led with our hearts?
No, ain't no what if we over here doing that.
You know, what if, I mean, just in the world, what if everybody did?
Let's go. That's what
Let's
we're
go.
doing.
That,
That's the
yes,
goal.
so I'm saying it
That
would be
is
a
the
whole
goal.
different world than what we're living in now
And
because
it's
not
so
everybody's doing
beautiful.
it.
It's so beautiful because I think that this is when we start talking about choices, like when we start talking about the choices we make as artists, those are the kind of things that we have to be on the forefront of.
Absolutely.
Because when we're cultivating a gift from God,
Hmm.
I'm gonna keep going back here because this is
Yeah.
just where
Yeah.
I'm at today. Like I have to cultivate my gift from God with God in mind, and God is love. And my actual heart center, about I think maybe 9 years ago, I promised to live a heart-centered life. It has been the most powerful journey of my entire consciousness. You know, it changed the way I mother, it changed the way I experience my perceived enemies,
Mm.
personal and, you know, ephemeral, right?
Yeah.
Enemies
Yeah.
in my head or enemies that are literally going against me, you know, in my life that I perceive as going against me. It changed so much about me, and it changed so much about the way I chose to experience things. I'm not perfect by any means because it sounds like, oh, you got it together because you live in a heart-centered life. Ooh, ooh, woo, woo. It ain't
No,
that.
it's not that. It definitely isn't that. It definitely isn't that.
But it's the commitment to keep coming back to that
Absolutely.
center, right?
Absolutely.
And it's like, yo, I was
Listen,
thinking crazy. Oh, but I'm back.
we don't have control over a lot of things in our lives, but
Yeah.
our perspective we have control over.
Yes.
The way
Yes.
we
Yes.
view life and the way we view other people and situations, we have control over that.
Yes.
So that
Yes.
can change your entire experience of life.
Yes. Yes.
That's
Yes.
the key.
It's so interesting because I think about having a gift and not having a gift,
Mhm.
right? And there's 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 the people that we look up to, we see something special inside of them. And I think of the importance of knowing that that something special is reflected in us, you know?
Yeah.
And so some time ago I had a vision. I was at a Broadway play, and it's a play that's no longer on Broadway right now. It was a play called Ain't No Mo. And the vision that I had in this play was that people, instead of clapping, the audience would say the artist's name that they related to, and also say their own name. So instead of the sound of, this rolling sound of applause,
Right.
there's different voices with different names reflecting each other back and forth, you
Hmm.
know. And when we speak our names, it speaks power to our life because it's the sound that represents the entire our whole entity manifests
Our
on
whole
earth,
being.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if I say Tunu Thom, it's like
Yeah,
right?
right.
And it has a certain energy that goes into it because of what my parents wanted me to represent. They had
Right.
to choose that for me, and I lived into it and lived through their idea and created my own and lived into it and lived through. And it's the cycle and the reverberation of sound energy that is my name,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And so instead of applause, it's just like this blank thing, like an ocean. We don't know what's in there. Just the sound of the names reverberating back to one another. And it's like hearing your name as an artist, seeing your name as an artist. We think, oh, it's the lights, it's the billboard, it's the bright. It's just the reflection of light, of what God has given to us, of our spirit.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely. Yeah.
we don't desire to see, oh my God. When I seen Beyonce on concert, I was just like, she's amazing. I love her. It was a whole thing, you know? And I was just in awe because of her work ethic. I could just see the work.
Right.
And I could hear the work, you know, and the study and the vision. And then I am so grateful to have had that experience, you know? And that's one level of someone who touches many, many people's
Many
lives.
people. Yeah. Right.
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 And then I think about when my daughter brings home artwork, right? And I say,
let's talk about that. Let's talk about you and your daughter, the relationship
yes,
between mommy, the artist, and the
yes.
daughter, who is maybe now an artist.
Well, I think we're all born artists.
Mm-hmm.
I think we are all born artists. And so I cultivate that inside of her. I cultivate her creativity. And I have two children. One is Michael Omar and one is Suleka Zaile. We call her Cookie.
Love it,
yeah.
love it.
But with the children, it's important that not only they express their creativity through artistic forms, dance, music, art, coloring, painting, but they also recognize that the choices they make are a part of their art. The way that they speak to one another is a part of what they're creating. The way that they perceive themselves, the way that they perceive one another, the way that they experience plentitude is a very important part of their development for us. My husband and I, we were both given a lot in terms of culture, and we were both given a lot in terms of understanding who we are as people, as African people in America, as Native people in America. And it's been an honor to teach them, to learn with them, to grow with them, to watch them experience life. You know, it's like
it's a learning process for you as well.
Yo, it's dope.
Yeah.
It's so dope. It's so dope. And it's a lot of work. Oh my God, I be talking a lot to my kids. We be talking a lot to our kids.
Yeah.
Talking and communicating, and then
and that's important. That is so important. Talking to your kids.
Yeah.
Talking to your kids.
Yeah. I was having a joke with a friend of mine. He's a drummer. He said he was talking to some girls that he knows, and he's like, this is during the whole coronavirus, and he's like, they said, I don't even know my kid. I don't even talk to my kids. Some of them texting their kids in the house. I'm not judging this, you know, everybody has their own way to utilize technology. I'm saying this to say, we have a desire to be seen, right? We have a desire to be acknowledged by other human beings. That's an innate quality. Yeah. That's an innate. Thank you. It's an innate quality that we have as human beings. I feel like if we didn't have that quality, we'd be one person on a planet.
Right.
You know, and that could very well exist somewhere in the universe. You know, one being on the planet, and that's your life. But we are put here to reflect one another, to encourage one another, to learn through one another. And the blessing is like, that ain't no judgment. How you rear your children is what you can give them, what you have the capacity to give them. At the same time, it's our human responsibility to constantly be growing, constantly be learning, constantly be uplifting.
But it's hard. It's hard too sometimes when you haven't been taught that, or you haven't had that experience as a parent yourself, because we already know the challenges that we people of color in this country have had, and other places. You know, systematically, we maybe haven't been taught that connection. You know,
so I agree.
We struggle with our own problems. you know. So me connecting with my child, I'm saying, for instance, may not be in my capacity as a parent because I didn't have that growing up.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
we
But you know what
struggle
else
with
is in
those
your
things.
capacity? Your phone is right in your hand. That's in your capacity.
Yeah.
And so we complain about technology, some of us, but everything is learnable.
It is
Everything is
It
learnable right
absolutely
now.
is. It is.
And that's why it's about, for me, I think of intention, right? Because if I have the consciousness to know that my child came from an action that my body did, male or female, there was an action that your body did to make a person.
Yeah.
You did something to make a person.
But not everybody's there. You know what I mean?
No,
Like
it's not. It's fine. It's fine to not be there, but now you're here because you're hearing this word. And that's fine. You're hearing these words and you did that, and that's amazing. And now what do we do? And it's not just even about parenting, right? It's about like, how do we choose to relate to one another with all the challenges that we've had? Yo, I'm gonna say this. What if our challenges were literally only to make us be more dope?
Yeah.
And we really looked at it like that every single day. Like, oh, thank you. I'm popping.
I don't know. I mean,
Javon Martin, oh, we're good.
These are the challenges that we have in today's society. I mean, you know, we're like you said, we're on the social media. We're on, you know, it's the instant gratification. It's the, you know, I hate to say it's the booty popping. It's the, you know, all the stuff that people are tuned into, the pop culture. It's not really human connection. We're not talking to each other. You have 5 kids, 5 teenagers now sitting in a room. Everybody's on the phone. Ain't nobody said a word. They're probably sitting right next to each other, texting each other. They're not even talking. They're not even communicating because that's where we are. Their parents aren't even talking.
Well, they are communicating.
They're communicating.
And I think that it's important for us. Well, I'll say this. We definitely did things that our parents were like, what are y'all doing? Sure. And then they definitely did things that their parents were like, what are y'all doing?
Right.
Very good things. Like my grandmother was getting flipped around in the Savoy, like panties showing, like, you know?
Yeah.
And my dad was not feeling it.
Right.
Like at all. But now we look back at that footage and we're like, oh, this is so cute. That Lindsay hopping around. And she could have been beaten for that. You know?
True. Yeah.
And so I think it's important to keep things on a timeline trajectory, which is also why I put a timeline in the book. But it's important to have the bird's eye view of a timeline trajectory, right? Because I had to sneak and listen to Little Kim. And now when I listen to the Little Kim I was listening to when I was 14, I'm like, oh my God, I would die if my daughter was listening to this, you know?
And trust me, it's 10 times worse now too. But it's 10 times worse now too.
Well, but this is what I'll say. This is what I'll say.
Relative to.
I think that that's why it's important that we just keep a line of communication, you know, and know that we're powerful enough. Living our lives is a powerful enough example for our children to be drawn back to.
Absolutely. You're right.
Like I'm kind to my children. Like I literally tell my kids when they hurt my feelings. And they don't like to, they rather not listen to me than hurt my feelings. You know, like they don't want to hurt mommy's feelings.
Sure.
They want to take care of me and make sure I'm fine. But this is a relationship of deep love and heart-centered living that we've cultivated as a family unit. You know, and that takes so much time and energy. And also the beautiful thing is that people who vibe with that vibe with us, you know, and we be just like rolling and now our community is growing and getting more powerful. And our friends are moving into more powerful places, you know, like we know politicians and judges that my children literally call auntie and uncle and goddad, godpa, you know.
I love that.
These are people that we grew up with. They're not our family, but they're our family, you know. And so what I'll say is, I think it's very important for us to really see what we are instead of looking at what they're not. Because the kids are fine. Like they're fine. They're absolutely fine. They might not look like us. They might not express like us, but they're okay, you know? And if they're not okay, they're going to get what they need to be okay.
We hope. I mean,
they will.
I'm not so there with you on that.
You gotta spend more time with us.
Okay? I'm not. Yeah, but listen, I'm talking about in general. If this was the case, we wouldn't have these mass shootings. If this was the case, we wouldn't have all, you know, the problem with all, the drugs going rampant now. And, I think we're at a different time. We hope the kids are okay. We do, like you say, we need strong relationships with our kids to make sure they're okay. I'm not sure. 3 years of COVID has created a whole nother situation on the kids. I have a 26-year-old, younger brother. I hope he's okay. 3 years where,
what I'll
like
say,
there are a whole bunch of things that are going on.
What I'll say is it's not a whole bunch more than what has been going on for the past 100 years. It's just a whole bunch more in terms of what we have access to knowing about.
Right.
And I'm not trying to be mean, right? But what I am trying to say, what I am going to say, I'm not trying to say, what I'm going to say is mind your business. Because
absolutely,
really all you have a responsibility to is your brother. Right. And as your story with him is cultivated and braided into the fabric and the fiber of what you are, that maximizes power, strength, unity, and humanity.
Absolutely.
I don't disagree with anything you said. You're 100% right. But what I'm saying is in the bird's eye view of history, like shit, it been popping.
It has.
It been popping.
You're right.
It been popping.
I have just feel like go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I have an aunt who at 12 years old would cut school and sit in on Black Panther trials at 12.
Right.
She was 12 making that decision.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the legacy that I come from, right? What I'll say is we can generalize, but I think generalizations are very dangerous because we become a culture of generalizations and celebrity. So it's like the general are low level, low power entities and people who can't really do anything. And then there's this huge entity that has power and control. It's not like that. And the reason that I know it's not like that is because mad people of color were surprised. Many people of color were surprised when Barack Obama got into office. Surprised.
Yes. Yep.
Surprised.
Right.
Now, what does that say about us? What does that say about power and efficacy and understanding? Now, I study politics. I've learned about politics. I still don't understand politics in American culture. I don't understand why the ball goes this way and why people are still holding on to these ideas, certain ideas. I don't get it. It don't make sense to me. It's not human. But what I will say is I've cultivated an understanding that helps me not be stressed out about why people are killing each other in schools. I understand that very well. I'm clear about the inability of certain citizens to let go of the power of the gun. I understand why they won't. And my humanity extends to them because if that's what you really feel protects you, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Listen, that's a whole nother conversation. We could go deep on that one.
We really could. And what I'll say is I'm so grateful for true protection.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm so grateful for true power.
Right.
I've shot guns. I've gone to the gun range and shot guns. I know what that power feels like. I know what the best gun is for my body to shoot accurately. Mm-hmm. I've had that training. But I still know that that's not no real power.
Right. It's not. It really isn't.
That's not no real power. But if you are of the ilk that is your real power, then woe to you. And woe to your consciousness. And, my prayer is that you are able to uplift and release because that ain't true power. That's not true power.
It's not true power. It's not.
Killing is not true power.
Not at all. Not at all.
So my prayer goes out to all of the people that have lost their lives and also all of the people that have taken lives in those type of incidences. My prayer goes out to all of the people that have been affected by the knowing of that, us included. That we are healed and made unafraid.
This goes back to what I was mentioning earlier. It's a reflection of the time that we are now. Yes, things have happened, in the past, relatively, you said, grandmother swinging at the Savoy, and being a Black Panther and being there in that situation. Those are all relative to that time period. But we're talking about, you're talking about gun control relative to now, relative to the fentanyl situation. These things are equally, if not more, detrimental. In an instant way.
Well, I don't call them detrimental. I call them lessons. And the reason that I call them lessons is because we have to remember that time is not linear. And I think that we kind of, I was paying attention to time during COVID. It was an interesting phenomenon for me. I was like, okay, so time is not real. What time is it? What day is it? There's nothing to bounce this time against. Like, what? Where am I? Right? There were some days like that. And then I really started connecting with my eternal life, my eternal soul. I started connecting with the fact that there's no end to where we exist. Like, it's only cycles, right? And so if we are able to look at the cycles of our lives and how we've shifted in the cycles of our lives, then we can look at that in a larger scale, like the cycles of our humanity in the city, in this town, in this borough, in this culture, in this country, in the world, like the cycles of our lives in the world. And so, yeah, things are seemingly speeding up because we have the access to tools that, like, I ain't sending you no message in a bottle to get across from Wompity to Wompity. No, I'm sending you a text message. Hey, where's the link? You know?
Exactly. Yep.
So we're experiencing time in that way because we have tools that help us to get more information. But I'm not going to make the tool that I use to get more information make me crazy about the time.
Right.
Because that don't make sense. That don't serve me.
Right.
I decided everything that I back has to serve me. And I just don't feel comfortable feeling unsafe. I know that God did not put me here to feel unsafe and scared and skittish and out of control. If 8-year-old Nina could have stood up in front of a whole room of white people and been like, I'm not continuing this concert until my parents are put back in their front seats. And her own mama was nervous because she knew what the Klan was. Yeah. There's no reason for me to really respect my artistic ancestor, who is Nina Simone, and look at my grown life and look at her young life and not be able to apply the lessons appropriately and accordingly.
Let me ask you this: we're going to shift the conversation just a little bit, but where does this perspective come from for you? Where does this perspective of life and the way you look at life come from?
Well, I believe I'm one of God's favorite daughters. Like, I don't know who y'all, I don't know who you wake up with every day. I don't know.
Let them know.
I can't say it's my connection. I talk to God like, yo, what do this mean? What I'm supposed to learn? Tell me where to go. Literally tell me what to do, because this don't make sense. And I get the answers that I need because I'm genuinely asking, because I want it to make sense, because I want to grow and I want to do the right thing and I want to understand and I want to learn and I want it to work for what I need. If it doesn't work for what I need, I'm not giving it no attention, because my attention is my power. Are you dumb?
Right. Yeah,
why would I sweat something that's not helping me?
Yeah. That's true.
We got to think about ourselves differently. If our talent really is a gift from God, if it really, you really, 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 really believe that, a gift from God,
yeah,
you got a gift from something you don't even understand that made everything, and you want to pay attention to something that don't serve you in creating and manifesting that gift. Oh, I'm crazy. We're crazy.
Yes. Yeah. You definitely.
And then when you say, oh, I'm crazy, then you could be like, all right, so now, because I know that I'm not well, help me heal, Lord. Help me heal, God, because I don't know what to do. I don't know how to focus this gift. I don't know how to cultivate my life to serve the gift you gave me. Teach me how. I believe that we could all start with teach me how. Even if you don't believe in God, that's your business. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
That's absolutely your absolute right and power. Do it. But be humble to the way that you are getting the things that you need, right? Like, what am I supposed to be learning right now? How am I supposed to do this? Ask those questions in genuine and in genuine optimism of receiving an answer, right? Because that's the other side of it. It's like, ask,
Yeah.
ask,
Ask.
you know. But we be honestly, Marcus, we be scared.
Right.
We
Right.
be scared. We be like, nah, that's not true.
Listen, you just said another word too. Optimism. Are
Yeah.
we, do we have optimism? Do
Yeah.
people have that? And how are you looking at your life? It goes back to what we were talking about earlier. What's your perspective about life and how you're viewing life and what
Yeah.
life means to you and
Well, I'm
for
gonna tell
you?
you why I try not to use that word, because it got played for a fool. That
How do,
word optimism
how do you
got
mean?
played for a fool, because and it actually didn't happen in this time. It actually happened like in the 60s, right? Where people are like, oh, ha ha ha, tree hugger, ha ha ha, rose colored glasses,
Mm-hmm.
ha ha ha, it's not real. When the movement of the 60s changed the entire American economy, it shifted the way white people, Black people, Asian people, Hispanic people, Native American, it shifted the entire, the youth in this country shifted the entire conversation
Absolutely
about
did.
war,
Yeah.
about politics,
Mm-hmm.
about the way we dress, about every single thing,
Everything.
right?
Everything.
And
Everything.
so when we minimize the power of the people, when we minimize that, we're really minimizing ourselves and our own self-efficacy and our own self-power. And I ain't about that, because I'm one person, like I'm a human being. But what I would say when it comes to the idea of optimism is that it really is like paying attention, but also learning to ride a bike at the same time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, when you learn to ride a bike, you had somebody's hand at the back of your seat.
Yeah, yeah.
And that somebody's hand may have also been at one handlebar. But you had two handlebars, two pedals, all the power. But that bigger person than you was at the back of your seat, maybe on one handlebar. And when you learned, you didn't know when they let go.
Right.
That moment
Yes. Yes.
of when, right before they let go, and when they let go, and you're like, oh, sweat, yo, I'm riding. That's literally how optimism works, right? Because you can't ride a bike before you can ride a bike.
That's
And
true.
riding
That's
a
absolutely
bike,
right. You're right.
it's like you just can't.
You
And
can't.
riding a bike is totally about balance, effort, skill, and understanding the terrain.
Right.
Like if I'm going uphill, I probably shouldn't learn going uphill. Nah. And so optimism is like choosing to learn. It's just the things that surround learning how to ride a bike, right? And we think, oh, it's not true. Yeah, and none of this is true. Because once you change your mind, your whole life changes.
Absolutely.
So the thing my parents gave me that was dope is they gave me the ability to look at my life as a science project. They were just like, try it. Get a hypothesis. Oh, that's what you think? Okay, so just check out, see if it works, see if it's true. And so as I started to think like a scientist, which is also an artist, right? As I started to think like a scientist and an artist and try new things, it cultivated different rooms in my home. And then that cultivated different rooms in my space. And then that cultivated different connections with people that I knew. And then the things that people really had huge problems with, we had solutions for, and we're like sharing solutions, And then they didn't have the problem, and then we can all figure out how to share solutions together. And like, maybe it's not real, and I'm fine with that. But my bike rides very well. I'm flying, and people may or may not want to, it's your business. I'm just minding my business, And I think that that's super important, because everybody believe what they believe and don't believe what they don't believe for a special reason to them.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I would never take away that from anyone, right? That's not my work.
Right.
My work is to believe and know what I know, and really know what I know, and test it out and get better and keep growing and keep learning and try things new, and not be afraid. Oh my God, that part.
Fear, yeah. Fear is the
That not be
biggest.
afraid part
Yeah,
is like, oh,
yeah,
you're
yeah.
fancy, you know? So just not be
Not be
afraid and
afraid.
continue to remember exactly who you are. You know, I think that if you really continue as an artist to think about you got a gift from God, like you got a gift, you don't understand how you can do it.
Right.
You know, you don't understand how, but you can.
But you can. I'm gonna hit you with one more question. I could talk to you all day
We're gonna
long,
so
but
spend more time
you
offline.
definitely, I want you to come back to the show because we haven't even
I'll
touched on
be
half of
honored.
the things that you do.
I'll be
So we're just
honored.
talking. I would love for you to. So the last question for you is, how do we find happiness and joy? Because they're two different
Mm.
things. How do you find happiness and joy?
Mm. I think that joy can be found in each breath. And I think that happiness has light feet. It's
Mm,
very fleeting, right?
yeah, yeah.
It's it's like I'll be happy the bricks in my building still together. Like, oh hey, we got a place to live. You know, like happy about that. Or someone I haven't hugged in a long time, I get to see and hug them, you know. Or I think about happiness as like creating something new or having a thought I never had before, you know.
Mm,
I think about joy as um, like a step-by-step cultivation also, kind of like when I intentionally inhale and intentionally exhale a billion times, that's my year, you know, and look at the markers of the things that have made my year be what my
mm,
year has been,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Like when I'm able to have that bird's eye view and pull back and see, oh, this is the time that, you know, we were together with these people, and this is the time that I produced this show. And, you
Right.
know, like just, I think pulling back and being with the breath
Okay.
at the same time is joy, you know, and happiness is like that light footed fairy that's like it tickles you. You're like, ah!
Right.
And
That's
you catch all
beautiful. I
these
like that.
flags in your body, and you're like, oh my God, when you hug them, or you see something that you haven't seen, or your kid does something that tickles you. Like before I called you today,
Uh-huh.
my kids were in their room making a traveling circus. Like they had the music, they had choreography, and there was dolls swinging from
Wow. So
they.
that's your happiness, but you pull back and you see the span of the life and the
Yeah,
things, the markers that they've
yeah,
done throughout. That's the joy.
that's a joy. Yeah,
You listen,
yeah,
Tanu, I can't,
yeah.
I can't with you. I can't with you.
What you got?
When I met you, I knew it. I've had the spark of light that you emit. Please keep shining. Please keep sharing. Please keep being who you are, inspiring. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much. Let everybody know how they can get a hold of the book
Oh,
and where they
sure.
can find all your information.
Awesome. So I have a website. It's called TunuThom.com. I just think it's dope that my name rhymes with calm.
Right?
God, you're dope.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. So TUNUTHOM.com is where you can find my book, An Unexpected New Dream. Yeah. And hopefully you'll purchase it there. It's about $22.50 online. And
Who's
I'm
the
on
book? Who's
Instagram.
the
I'm
book
on,
for?
pardon?
Who's the book written for?
The book is written for 3 to 1,000.
There you go.
So the reason that I wrote this book like this is because it's for adults too. Like, you know, when you're reading your kid that book and you know that the author put stuff in there for you,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So this is Nina as she got older.
Love it. Love
And
it.
just I was able to put a timeline in there. So like she was born when the first chocolate chip cookie was made, and
Oh my
things
God,
like
man.
she started like things that were happening politically, things that were happening just all over the country, things that were happening socially. Like when the Wiz, like this is all, it's just a timeline from 1933 to 2003 when she was born and when she passed away. But if you think about that span of her life, that's an amazing time span
it sure is. It
to
really
live.
is. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so interesting. I was in Paris when she passed away.
Are you
So I was
serious?
like, yeah, yeah, it was amazing.
Oh my God. So listen,
Yeah.
here that's two things. Okay, here's the thing. I
Yeah.
would love for you to come back for One Mic Night Talk, because One Mic Night Talk, we talk about inspirational topics. We're going to talk about diversity, representation. We're going to talk about all that
Yes.
stuff. That's what I want you to come
Nice.
back for, please, because we
Cool.
know you. Everybody, please, within the sound of my voice, please make sure you reach out to Tunu. TunuThom.com is where you can find all the information.
Yeah.
Get the book. It's from
Yay.
3 to 1,000. So all you senior citizens, you get a copy. Get one for your niece. Get one for your grandniece. Get one for your mama. Get one for everybody. The
It's a
book is
great
incredible.
gift. Yeah. Thank you.
Follow her on all the social media. You can find the links on her website. I'm following her on Twitter now. Please, Instagram also. We're going to talk about your beadwork next time, because we didn't have a chance to talk about that. Everything.
Yeah.
This amazing, phenomenal, powerful woman.
Thank you, Marcos.
Please come back. The show is called One Mic Night. I hope you
Thank
guys
you so
enjoyed
much
this
for having
episode.
me.
Please, yes.
It's an honor.
Thank you.
An
Thank you
honor
so
to
much.
exchange.
Everybody, make sure you leave a message, leave a comment down in the bottom of this episode. We're going to have all her information down in the episode notes. Click the subscribe button, share this episode.
Yes.
This episode is the light of your day. I'm gonna tell you. Follow me at Marcos Luis, MarcosLuis. I'm on all social media. You can follow the show at OneMicNite. OneMicNite is spelled OneMicNite. Thank you guys all for being here. Also, make sure you click down the link below. Check out my home decor and elements of life living store. It's called Azules EN. I have a paintings for sale by the artist, like the one that's hanging up in my background. You guys already know that's by Ennio Azules. So thank you guys for joining me for this episode. We will see you next time. This is One My Night Podcast. I'm out.